Welcome to 5 Points Blues presentation of Back to the Basics. Everything you wanted to know about Cowboys football, but were too afraid to ask. Here are your hosts, Nikki Harrison and Christy Scales.
Hello, Christy. How are you today?
The week has flown by.
It has flown by. It's Tuesday and we got a game on Thursday.
Yeah.
Golly.
50th time that the Cowboys have played on Thanksgiving Day. Unbelievable.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
That's fun. That is unbelievable. 50th time.
Yeah.
So today on Back to the Basics, everything you wanted to know about Cowboys football but were too afraid to ask, we're going to talk about Thanksgiving and the tradition of Dallas Cowboys football on Thanksgiving Day. So we actually got a couple questions.
Okay.
But before I get to that, if you want to give us a call, 214-872-2102. Give us a call if you have any questions. And let's get started. So this one is interesting. This one is from Sarah from Brașov, Romania.
From Romania.
Yes.
Okay. With a question about American Thanksgiving.
Yes. And
I love it.
she
Okay.
says
Way
she
to go,
wants-
Sarah. Love
She
it.
wants to know, why are there so many American football games on the holiday for Thanksgiving?
Well, 3 for the NFL, and then, of course,
That's right.
college. The tradition of football on Thanksgiving, we're going to go through some fun facts for football on the holiday, and that's actually our first football fun fact, that the first game played on the holiday was actually not a professional football game, but goes all the way back to college. I know you got that one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yale and Princeton, and that was in 1876.
1876, and anybody who
Crazy.
would have, not that video was available then, but even if video were available, it would not look anything like what
No.
football, that was that was over 30 years before the forward pass was legalized. It would have looked like rugby. Of course, American football comes from rugby and
Right.
from soccer, and back then, field goals were worth more than touchdowns.
Seriously?
So it looked a lot more like soccer and rugby than what you see now.
Interesting.
Yeah, but as for the NFL, it goes back to the 1920s. The NFL was founded in 1920, and back then it was called the American Professional Football Association.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think one of the big things to keep it going was in, I believe, 1925 or 1926, the Chicago Cardinals, that's right, the Cardinals, before they
Were the
went to
Bears.
Arizona and before they went to St. Louis, were in Chicago, and they were playing the Bears, and it was at Wrigley Field, where baseball, of course, the home of the Chicago Cubs, but it used to also be the home for the Chicago Bears. And they got 36,000 people to come out to a game back in the 1920s. And so you have to remember, Sarah, that back then, people got so few days off. Holidays. And so it's like, all right, we have a chance to get a big crowd to come to a game, and they pulled 36,000, and the NFL saw how great that was and continued to do it throughout all these years.
So then let's fast forward, because the Dallas Cowboys' first Thanksgiving Day game was in the 60s. Was it 1966?
1966, that's right.
Why? And we play every Thanksgiving.
Yes,
so
that's
I know
right.
a lot of people wonder, why is it that the Dallas Cowboys and the Detroit Lions, we can get into that one in a little bit, but why do the Dallas Cowboys always play on Thanksgiving?
Well, it was a bit of a gamble. The credit goes to Tex Schramm. So write about it in 5 Points Blue this week. And I think the way I put it was, we need to raise our turkey drumsticks and salute Tex Schramm, who is the original team president and general manager, and just a visionary, just this marketing genius. The NFL would not be what it is today. Not just the Cowboys, but the entire league without the genius of Tex Schramm. That's why he's in the Hall of Fame. But his background was in television, sports television. He worked with CBS and used to do, help broadcast the Olympics and things like that. And so he was a visionary. And the NFL, they had their one game at home for Detroit. Detroit's been playing at home since 1934. So the NFL wanted to expand the television package, and Tex said, okay. Teams were reluctant to have a game on a weekday. All right, we'll do it in Dallas, but you have to promise that if we do this, if we take this leap of faith, that we get to keep the game and host it every year. And it was a bit of a gamble because back then the Cowboys playing at the Cotton Bowl, they weren't drawing big crowds. And this is just as they were starting to get good in 1966, back in the days with Don Meredith at quarterback, and they had Bob Lilly and Leroy Jordan coming in, just starting to build into what they are now. And 86,000 people showed up at the Cotton Bowl.
Wow. On
Thanksgiving Day, and the Cowboys beat the Browns, who were just a powerhouse back then, along with the Packers. And, the Browns were in championship games and all of that. So every year since 1976, except for 2 years in the 1970s, when the St. Louis Cardinals got to host it. But the Cowboys have played either at the Cotton Bowl or Texas Stadium or AT&T Stadium. And this Thursday will be the 50th game for the Cowboys.
Wild. Now, since we know that the Dallas Cowboys always play on Thanksgiving and the Detroit Lions, what do you think? Do you think the opponents, once they see that they're also going to be playing them on Thanksgiving Day, are they happy about that? Do they dread having to make that trip?
I tell you, it's tough. It's tough physically. And another one of the reasons why Tex wanted to have the promise that, okay, we get to play at home, is he understood the competitive advantage that the Cowboys enjoy playing on the short week every single year. The problem when you're the visiting team going to Detroit for the 11:30 a.m. Central kickoff or coming to Dallas for the 3:30 Central afternoon kickoff is you've got to travel on Wednesday. So you might have a walkthrough or, a short practice on Wednesday, and then you have to travel. So it's a really short turnaround time. None of the players like Thanksgiving Day. I mean, they love the exposure. They love, being the game and all eyes are on them. But, physically, the recovery, Thursday, you're barely working out the kinks from what happened on Sunday. But so you have the accelerated physical process of recovery and then getting ready to play on Thursday, and then you have a short week to prepare. Now, last year when they're playing the Redskins, well, that's easier because there's a lot of familiarity with that division opponent. You play them twice a year. This year, the Cowboys are hosting an AFC team, the I almost said San Diego, the Los Angeles Chargers, that they play once every 4 years. So, a lot more study time for someone like Dak Prescott this week, who, not that he would put any less, right. against a division opponent.
You don't have as much time.
Well, it's just that, it's just unfamiliar. He hadn't seen the Chargers before.
But then, for example, the Chargers will have a longer recovery time because they aren't playing next Thursday like the Cowboys are. So
this is the third year in a row where the Cowboys have had the Thanksgiving Day game followed by a road game, followed by a Thursday game the next week. Now this year, the Cowboys have the benefit of having it at home.
Yes.
Of course, for Thanksgiving, but then the following week playing the Redskins on November 30th. Last year, the follow-up game was it was at Minnesota, so we had to travel to Minneapolis on the Wednesday after Thanksgiving. So basically, it's a real big advantage for the Cowboys this year in particular because we talk about the 3 games in 12-day stretch from what happened against Philadelphia last Sunday to playing the Chargers and then playing the Redskins. All 3 of those games are at home. So if you got to play 3 games in 12 days, it's a big advantage to be
at home. That's good. Well, give us a call, 214-872-2102. Again, that's 214-872-2102 if you have any questions. This next one this is a pretty good one. What's the Cowboys' Thanksgiving Day record?
30, 18, and 1. So,
yes.
There's a... obviously, we talked about the competitive balance issue, and there definitely is a competitive advantage there. So, got to keep it going, though.
Keep it going.
Got to keep it going. But this is actually going to be the first time that the Cowboys have played the Chargers on Thanksgiving Day. Our most common opponent over the years have been the Redskins, and so you would figure that with a division game, and you like that kind of rivalry, and
right,
also this is kind of a fun thing too. The broadcasting packages have changed a little bit, and you can speak to this since that's your area of expertise is broadcasting, Nikki. But the reason why the Cowboys you have the early games, right? So Detroit and Dallas. And back in 2006, the NFL added a third game at night, okay?
Yeah.
And that's when they had NFL Network, the Thursday package. And they still have a Thursday package for NFL Network, but now it's shared with CBS and NBC. But the league wanted to expand coverage, to get add a game,
some
right?
Owners want also.
Yeah,
to
see,
get
that's
that
the
coverage?
thing. The reason when I mentioned that the Cowboys didn't have those 2 games in the 70s, that it went to St. Louis, that's because the other owners recognized the advantage that the Cowboys and the Lions had, not just in terms of being at home, short turnaround, but just how many people come, the national TV exposure, the marketing. And so other owners wanted in on the action, particularly Lamar Hunt of the Kansas City Chiefs. But anyway, the 2 games that were played in St. Louis in the 1970s did not get the same kind of draw. And I mean in terms of eyeballs watching television. And plus, Tex was pretty ticked off, and Tex had a lot of sway with the league. So it came back to the Cowboys, after those 2 years in the 70s. So, and the Cowboys have had it, obviously, since then. But, the league wanted to get more broadcasting money from our broadcast partners. So they added a third game, and that third game rotates. And this year, it happens to be the Washington Redskins hosting the New York Giants. So that's going to be the third game this week, and then the Redskins have to turn around and come to AT&T Stadium on November 30th. So they get 3 games in 12 days, just like the Cowboys, but only one of theirs is at home.
So we have the advantage.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
Absolutely.
That's fascinating. Okay. Well, then I have another question. Okay. AJ from Maybank, Texas. She wants to know who chooses the singers for the halftime shows for the Salvation Army on Thanksgiving.
Oh, Charlotte Jones Anderson gets the credit on that. Last year was the 20-year anniversary. Can you believe it'll be 21 years that we've had the Red Kettle kickoff campaign at halftime. So Thomas Rhett is this year. Do you remember who the very first one was?
Oh gosh,
it was 1996.
No.
Charlotte Jones Anderson loves to tell this story. It was Reba McEntire.
Okay.
And Jerry also loves to tell the story of how he and Charlotte, mainly Charlotte, went up to New York to not to the league office, but to the office of NBC and Dick Ebersol.
Okay.
And convinced him to expand the halftime and show, normally the TV networks do their studio show, right? And they're showing highlights and you got the talking heads and everything.
For sure.
And so Charlotte and Jerry wanted the broadcast network to commit to showing the full halftime show, and they promised a big concert and that it would be Super Bowl halftime quality, and if they were able to put on this production, would they carry it? And says, okay, we will, but I tell you, the first time that it's not up to standards, we're going to cut away to commercial. And so Charlotte and Jerry walked out of Dick Ebersol's office, and the door closed, and Jerry says to Charlotte, do you know what you just did? And Charlotte says, I got a halftime show. He says, no, you just got millions of free dollars of advertising for the Salvation Army. And it kicks off the Red Kettle campaign, and Charlotte had already talked to Reba McEntire. And Reba came up with a special song. And so that was part of the pitch, is we're going to put on a Super Bowl quality show. We already have Reba McEntire lined up. And the reason why Reba did it is, her grandfather, who had fought in the war, World War, actually it might have been World War I instead of World War II. But anyway, the Salvation Army would bring donuts to soldiers on the front line. And so when Charlotte had flown out to meet with Reba and said, Reba, would you consider doing a halftime show for Salvation Army? She says, I'll do anything for Salvation Army, because my granddad always would tell the story of how they would bring donuts to him on the front line, so I'll do anything. That's the history of
my goodness,
the start of the Salvation Army halftime show.
Well, it's a great show, and it's great coverage for the artists that agreed to participate and
Right.
perform. I mean, all eyes, everyone in America is watching. That's what you do. You're sitting around eating your turkey, and you're watching the Dallas Cowboys and the Detroit Lions and whoever's performing.
Yeah, who's been your favorite so far?
Oh,
We've had over 20.
Destiny's Child.
See, I was going to say the same thing. Yeah, that was great because went
was
to go
awesome.
out. They rehearse all day on Wednesday at the stadium along with the Cowboys cheerleaders. And actually, they started the crew with the staging and the rigging. They
Yes.
actually started last week at AT&T Stadium. Then they had to break it all down and get it out of the way
It's a big
for
production.
the Cowboys game against
Yes.
the Eagles. And then there's high school football going on this weekend. But yeah, I mean, this is weeks and weeks, and in the case of lining up artists, is oftentimes months and months in the planning.
Yes, agreed. Well, we covered Thanksgiving, so before we go, we do have to talk some football.
You bet.
We have to talk some football.
Okay.
So we're headed into Los Angeles Chargers. How are we looking? Sunday was tough.
Sunday was very tough, and the offense not being able to get the ball in the end zone, and Dak has been under siege the last couple of games.
Now,
And-
can I stop you right
Yes,
there? I have to say, and tell me if I'm wrong, it seemed like it was better on Sunday with Bell at left tackle.
Absolutely. Byron Bell really did a good job overall. He did get a lot more help with some tight ends and
Okay.
with backs chipping and things like that. So the coaching staff was not going to let happen what happened the week before at Atlanta, but still sacked, 4 times?
Yes.
And just having to hurry the ball too much. And the receivers sometimes not winning their matchups. And so there was a reason why they only lined up for 3 field goals and couldn't punch it in the end zone. The issue with the Chargers is they have a dominating pass rush, particularly with their 2 defensive ends. One is Joey Bosa, who came out in the draft, was taken just before Zeke Elliott, right, last year. They were actually, Zeke and Joey Bosa were teammates at Ohio State, but he's has 10.5 or 10.5 sacks so far this year. And then the opposite defensive end, so the book end, is Melvin Ingram.
Okay.
The 2 of them have combined for 19 sacks so far this year. And overall, the Chargers have 30, which is 3rd highest in the league. So they're great at getting a lot of pressure. And in fact, I've asked Dak about that today in the locker room. Said, did you get to know Joey Bosa during the draft process with you 2 guys coming out, together in the same class, and you were both going to be drafted so high? And he says, well, I kind of know him through Zeke, and I've met him. I don't know him real well, but he and Ingram, the thing about them is it's not just their skills, it's their motors. They're relentless, and it's not just against the pass, but against the run, too.
Okay.
So this is going to be a big challenge. The good news, Nikki, is that Tyron Smith, was practicing today, so hopefully we'll, it looks like Tyron, I know he wants to so badly be back in time for Thursday, and it's looking good that we'll have Tyron.
That's good. What about Sean Lee? How's he
No,
looking?
Sean, things won't become official on the injury report, the game status, till Wednesday afternoon. But no, Sean's hamstring injury is a multi-week injury. The good news, though, is that Anthony Hitchens, who was injured on the real early in the 4th quarter, it was a groin injury. He was not able to finish the game, and Anthony is a terrific linebacker for us. And I would say that he and Sean Lee and DeMarcus Lawrence are our 3 best players on defense. Anthony had the groin injury, but they got a good result from the MRI. He said that it was a mild groin strain, and he was able to, he was out there doing some first-team stuff with what we saw in practice today, the media portion, and so it looks like that Anthony will be able to play Thursday, and that is key.
Yes.
Really, when you don't have Sean Lee, you really, really need Anthony Hitchens.
Definitely. Well, okay. Looking forward to it.
3:30 kickoff.
Yes,
Central.
3:30 kickoff. All right. Well, we covered Thanksgiving. We got some football. That's it for us today.
Yeah. Hey, happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy
Thanks for joining us
Thanksgiving.
this week.
Thank you, Douglas. We'll be back next week. Thanks for watching.
This has been a production of 5 Points Blue, DallasCowboys.com, and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?